Constantine, a Hellblazer podcast.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hell Talk with my co-host Hoku, as always.
Hello.
Yeah. We're still trying to get this is only our fourth episode technically, so still getting our feet, our legs in this, but yeah, so
Sea legs.
yes, our sea legs, our pod legs, as they call it. But yeah, so today we're going over Hellblazer issues 41 through 49, which was the beginning of the Garth Ennis run. And I don't know about you, I thought it was pretty interesting. I'm a big fan of this run, like in its totality. I was very excited to get here and like have people start listening to this stuff. And hopefully, they're enjoying it as well. But as far as you, like, had you ever read any Garth Ennis comics before this?
I am not sure. Could you mention, I guess, some of his greatest hits? I'm so bad at remembering who
Okay. So
and who writes what and who draws what. So
right. So he wrote Preacher. He wrote.
okay, I haven't read that.
Okay. He wrote The Boys.
I know of it, but I've only seen the TV show.
Okay. He also did Punisher Max.
Never read those.
Okay. So you haven't read any of his stuff then, pretty much.
No, I mean I know of those things, but yeah, I've never had the chance to actually read through them, unfortunately.
Okay. He's one of those like second wave of British writers who's kind of like a lot of them have a similar sensibility of like not nihilism, but like a big like fuck you to everybody. So like him and Warren Ellis with like Transmet and stuff, like they all have like this kind of attitude, and I think he kind of bestows a lot of that in his comics. Garth Ennis does. So
It does seem like, from what you mentioned, at least with the other things he's written, he does tend to go towards the darker side, which is very cool.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
a nice switch up from like the average Marvel DC normal run stories that, I mean, obviously are meant to go towards younger audiences, but I'm glad that with this wave they were like, hey, you know what, adults like comics too, and maybe those like older teens who are looking for something a little less campy and a little more darker can go in this direction.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this was like right as Vertigo became a brand, I believe. So like right in around this time in the series, he took over. So it fits really well because he's definitely not pulling punches. Like other
That's
DC
for
comics
sure.
do. Yeah.
I thought that with this run, or at least with this particular arc, I think this was the first time I have ever wanted an arc to be longer. I mean, given Fear Machine and how I wished it was shorter, this was the first time I was like, you know what? I would have liked a couple more episodes or issues to go through of John figuring out his shit.
Right.
I think I would have liked a little more in there.
Yeah, I can see that. He has a quick pace in the Hellblazer series, like, which I think is, it's like exacerbated by because we're reading it all at once, or you're listening to it all at once, like only a week apart, as opposed to reading it a month apart. I think a lot of issues or a lot of arcs back in the day they have a quicker feeling when you read them now, or when you read them in trade than like how they came out. Like they felt better paced as if you read them in issue form. Whereas like now I think a lot of people write specifically for trade. So like it has a little bit of a better flow when you read it in trade form.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel like if you waited a month in between, there is like the it feels longer. This was 9 months of comics, but that arc was 6 months. So So if we think of it like that, I think that kind of does give it space, but we forget because we're reading it in trade form usually now. So
Well, I don't know because we went through, you put out Fear Machine once a week, and that felt like it took an eternity to get through.
yeah, can you
Versus this
imagine?
one,
Can
at
you
the same
imagine reading that
pace,
9 months
I
of
was
it?
like, oh man, this is actually moving really quickly. Like I kind of wish there was like one more issue of John kind of going off and finding something, or trying to find one other person to sort of figure out his thing, and then that not working and him moving on to the next one. I think just because the last, well, like the last four issues were kind of just all in a row of like everything happening.
Right.
So I think one more in there that connected, but still let it move, just let it simmer a little bit longer would have been cool. But still, overall, it was great. I really enjoyed this arc.
Nice. Yeah. Like one thing I was interested about is so coming from Delano's run, did John feel any different? With the new writer and everything.
I mean, I was expecting it to take an immediate upswing, given that the ending of the last one was like he's whole, he's a brand new person, he's complete, he's both, the dark and the light. Now he's got this new feeling, and then it straight up starts with "I'm dying," and I was like, "What? What was
Yes.
that?" Okay, that sucks.
Yeah, I think I even said that in the first issue of this run, where I was like he has a page of like not dying, and then and then you turn the page and he's spitting out part of his lung in the sink. So it's like
Right?
no time to congratulate himself on becoming a whole person.
I feel like he felt like he was the same kind of John, except maybe he had a bit more of a kind of just this attitude of like I'm going to figure this out. And maybe before the run, he might have been a little more like accepting of his fate, but hopefully because he's this whole new person, he had more of a like, no, I'm going to do whatever it takes to beat this and get through this, and screw anybody who gets in my way,
Right.
essentially.
Okay, so with that, do you think that his change in kind of outlook and stuff is that because of a new writer jumping on, or do you think that Garth Ennis specifically made John have this new outlook or new way of acting because of what's supposed to have happened with him merging with his twin?
I think it's a bit of both, actually. I mean, the way it was left was sort of this positive, you know, you could do anything now because you're a whole person. You have a completely different outlook on life. And I think that sort of lent itself to the ability for a new writer to come in and sort of run with that. Be like, okay, so you don't necessarily have to follow the way he was before. If you don't want to, he can have this new outlook. But if you want to still sort of bring that old John in there a little bit, there's that option too.
Right.
Of like maybe it was a transcendental moment, but it's sort of like fleeting. Like, okay, he's over it. He's himself again. Because there are people like that, who go through the like, oh, I've had this amazing experience, but then nothing actually changes inside them.
Yeah, at least not long term. Like maybe a momentary
Right.
thing.
Right. You have that momentary like, I've reached this new level of something, and then and then you just go back to the same old, same old. So
Yeah.
there was always that possibility, I think, of John kind of just being like, I'm amazing now, and then but same old, same old. So I think he played it off really well in that he has sort of, it still feels like John, which I think is great because you don't want him to feel like a completely brand new character necessarily. But he also had sort of a different, I suppose, outlook in that. I mean, yeah, he was always cocksure before, but now he kind of felt like almost aggressively.
Yes.
Not maybe not positive, but aggressively like, I am going to beat this. I am the best at what I do. And because of that, I will win no matter who is against me. Even cancer, fuck cancer. I'm going to beat this thing.
Yes, I found that like for me the biggest thing I noticed is like in Delano's run there's more of like a nihilism in his way of thinking about things. Like just kind of
Mm,
like we're all fucked, the world is fucked. Sure, I can do this or that and maybe tip the scale a little bit, but either way it's always tipping towards I'm fucked. And in this, it felt like he had a bit more of like cocksureness or like an attitude of like, nah, I can fucking change this shit at least enough so that I'm better. I come out better in the long run. That's kind of like the feeling I get in this arc, because he does basically do that with like sure, I mean, moment like things might change for the worse for some things, but at least I'm not dead and I don't have cancer anymore, kind of thing. So but he has like this newfound confidence, and I think that is supposed to be. I think the twin absorbing thing from Delano's run at the end, like, allowed Ennis to make these changes to the character and them feel normal or feel like earned or whatever, and not just out of nowhere, as opposed to like him just starting a run and now the character feels slightly different. And like you said, it is John, but he's got more swagger and stuff. So
I think what was really great was the fact that Delano gave it an ending that allowed for another writer to come in and just kind of run with it. I mean, he could have just ended it the same way. John, like, nothing amazing could have happened. John could have just been same old, same old. But I think not only did it end it in a way that was kind of a highlight for him, but allowed another writer to just come in and run with it however they wanted to. So they could have made John the same. They could also have completely changed John around and he could have been a completely different person. So either way, I'm just really glad that it flowed so well, that he got an amazing ending, and it was also a great way to start like a new beginning for John too.
yeah. And to be fair, like, Ennis could have made a really big change to the character in the way that he acts and just explained it away with, like, oh, the twin thing, it's like,
Right.
so he could have made it like a big thing, but I think giving him like the swagger or confidence was a good way to just show like, oh, he is a different person. They even mention, I think John mentions like that whole thing with my twin in the first issue of Ennis's run, just to like make sure we all know that happened still. It wasn't like it's getting erased now that Ennis took over. So I like that. But like, as you said, it kind of doesn't matter for this issue until towards the end, because John is dying from lung cancer like immediately in the first issue. So this brings up the movie. Have you? I'm pretty sure you have, but have you seen Constantine the movie?
Oh yes, I pretty sure I saw it in theater because that was like the first time I found out about the character beyond, his issue in Sandman. And again, I hadn't made the connection that they're the same person. Although I could be forgiven for that because Keanu Reeves's Constantine is not comic book Constantine. So
At all.
I mean, it's a weird, it's a different name. So I mean, it's the same name, but it's a completely different adaptation. So if I didn't make that connection, I hope you'll forgive me.
Oh, don't worry. I didn't know.
Realizing.
I didn't know it either. I mean, the comic was called Hellblazer for 12 years after the movie came out. And so I didn't even know that was the character. I just knew, okay, he is a DC character. But like, the movie did actually make me, like, when I started reading comics in the mid 2000s, go seek out like Hellblazer, because I liked parts of the movie. Like, the things I liked in the movie, I was like, they were intriguing enough to make me go find the comic. So yeah, I think it's cool that you saw it in theaters. That's nice. I think I saw it in theaters too. I don't think I waited for DVD on that one, but because I remember seeing it and thinking like, there are some things that are awesome in this comic and there are some things that suck. And I mean, I think you probably noticed, since you've seen the movie and read the comic. What did you notice? Like, what were the things that were from this issue? Like, did you like the stuff that they added or took away from this story arc? Because the movie's basically this story arc of him getting cancer and stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I mean, I loved reading the source material and seeing, like you said, like all the really great parts of the movie came from the comic. Like those,
Yeah.
that was where they pulled things. And not only that, not only just the part of the plot, the cancer part, not the rest of it, but part of the plot, some of the ways people died was also reminiscent of not this run, but other parts. But there were even moments visually that they pulled, I think, from the comic as well. Like the flipping off at the end
Yes.
was, I think, almost shot for shot the same. when Lucifer comes into the scene right after in the movie when he cuts his wrist, and also in the comic book, his slow descent while he's not looking like, Jesus on the cross, that same shot of
I
like
think he
his
is.
feet coming down.
Yeah, well, because the feet are in the same position like they are in the comic. I feel like
Yeah, I mean,
I
but
don't
he's not
remember.
like naked,
He's not
like
naked,
naked
but he is.
or
I think he
whatever.
does have
But
his
he's
arms
still,
stretched out.
yeah, so he still looks like he's doing the same pose, just not with the whole like loincloth thing, because he's in like a suit or whatever in the movie,
Right.
which I loved. I loved that
And you know what?
whole contrast of that crisp white suit with the black ooze instead of blood.
Oh
Oh, that was
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. Like he just went through some like weird dimensional portal and like black tar is just dripping off of him from that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really liked that visual. I thought that that was so much more striking than if it had just been blood. I thought that was like so cool because it's almost like he had to walk through some nastiness,
Right.
to get up there.
Right. Or maybe he's just nastiness. You never know.
Yeah, he's oozing it. Yeah, exactly. Like he is oozing that because that is what he is just that gooey ooze stuff.
Right. I think the biggest change, and like, I mean, if you listen to this or you listen to the issues or read the issues and you knew that I flubbed it. I thought because of the movie and remembering that like continuity, I thought when I was reading this on the episodes that was Lucifer, and it's not. It's the first of the fallen, who's a different
That's
character
right.
in this series. And I keep saying Lucifer in the beginning of this, and probably towards the end of the run too. The whole run or this like six issue mini or storyline. I keep saying Lucifer, but it's not. It's the first of the fallen, and I think I just got it confused because of the movie, where he says Lou and all that stuff.
Right.
But that's a big change. What do you think of that change? I guess the movie makes sense, right? Because no one knows who the first of the fallen is in
Right.
the
Well,
normal.
I honestly would have assumed that that was just the same name for Lucifer. I wouldn't
Right.
have thought that it was a different character.
Right, and they don't really go
So
into that later. They don't
yeah,
really go into that in this arc. I know later for sure he is a different character, and there's a reason why they never call him Lucifer in this, because he's not. Because Vertigo, like the comic book imprint from DC, there is a character named Lucifer, the one from Sandman, who got bested by
yeah,
Morpheus, and then he goes on his own comic book called Lucifer. So like they needed
right.
to set up different characters. So I bet he was supposed to be Lucifer at first, and then it was like, oh, well, we have to spin that a different
You
way.
can't be in two places at once, unfortunately. Sorry, you
Right,
guys need to figure something else out for your reigning king of hell.
right, yeah. Speaking of that, what'd you think of like the three kings of hell?
Well, I thought that was really cool because I remember when reading that in Sandman after uh, Morpheus had bested Lucifer essentially, but I didn't realize that it was from Swamp Thing, that whole darkness thing, that
Right,
that was also what contributed to the three kings of hell. So I knew of the three kings from Sandman. I just, other than like that brief cameo that they have in there when there's the episode when Lucifer abdicates and everyone wants to try and like take control of hell in,
right.
in Sandman. I didn't know much about them as characters. So to have them be like a major part of this arc and have their own, personalities and voices, by the way, which I thought was very cool the way you did their voices.
Oh, yeah. It's hard to always come up with, especially for like satanic beings. It's like, do you go weird and
Yeah.
creepy, or do you go like gruff and
Soft and
angry?
like
Yeah,
kind of whispery, which was really creepy for. I think number two's voice
yeah,
was the creepiest.
yeah. I tried.
But yeah, I really enjoyed seeing a bit more of them. I mean, it's been really cool to have both Sandman, Swamp Thing, and Hellblazer now in my repertoire. It's almost like the triangle or the triad of information that crosses over, and now I finally get to see all the bits and pieces that have been here and there, and see the source material. So that was great. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed seeing the three of them.
yeah. It's just all the puzzle pieces are clicking into place, and that's
Hmm.
honestly that's what it is to be a DC Comics fan. Like the more you read, the more puzzle pieces click into place, and then you feel like you're part of some special club because you just inherently know all this like useless comic book knowledge about DC. But like it feels from the outside like oh, it's impenetrable, but then you just start reading like Sandman, and then you're like, oh, I'll check out Hellblazer because you saw the character or whatever, and then oh, I'll check out whatever, and all of a sudden these pieces start clicking together, and that's always fun. I always find that as like a fun part of comic book continuity. It doesn't happen so much in Marvel because they specifically write their comics to be accessible to everyone, which is good. Like, don't get me wrong, but that part of the DC like fandom is fun for me, even though if it's not like accessible to everybody. But yeah, so it's nice though that like the movie could get you familiar with the character, and then you could read this and kind of fill in the blanks or see what they changed. And so I actually think the movie did a good job at like bringing people in that never heard of the character or didn't even know it was a comic book character at all. So like, do you think the movie did a good job at that?
Oh yeah, I think that, I mean, if nothing else, I think that the movie sort of provided a great initiation into the world of John Constantine. I Can you remember if in the credits they say it's based off of the Hellblazer comics or not? Like, did they do any mention
I
of
mean,
that?
they definitely do like DC Vertigo titles on it. I know for sure they do that,
Okay.
but I don't think they
I
say
can't
like
remember.
based on Hellblazer or thanks to Jamie
Yeah,
Dornan
in
or
the
anything.
credits.
I don't think they
Yeah,
thanked Alan
I'm not
Moore.
sure. Oh no.
Yeah, because he's the creator. I don't, him and who was it? Stephen Bissett and John Totleben. They would have been the creators of John.
Right back in Swamp Thing.
Yeah, so I don't think they do that, of course, or
Oh.
even Garth Ennis, who came up with the cancer storyline. I don't know. I haven't seen it for a while. Maybe I'm wrong. Anybody who's seen it, let me know.
I just watched it back at the beginning of the month, and I didn't even think to check to the credits. I just fast forward to the very last, like very very end, where they have that tiny little snippet, which is just weird.
Yeah,
But
weird.
anyway,
Especially when you know about Chaz in the comic, you're like, what the
right?
fuck
Oh
is
yeah,
this?
that just makes no sense at all.
Ruff LaBeouf in that
Which is
movie
great.
is the only thing that physically pisses me off about that movie. If he wasn't in it, if it was just his friend cab driver that's an adult, I would have totally been fine with that movie on so many more levels than I am, just because Shia LaBeouf is like the comedy relief / plucky sidekick. It is the most annoying, and they gave him the name of Chaz. I'm like, you fucking assholes. But that's what Hollywood does, right? But that was from 2005. That was before stingers were a thing. So that's the fact that they even had the thing. The after credit scene is unique, and then also, the whole like thanking people. I don't think that was something. I mean, I guess Stan Lee got thanks for everything with like Spider-Man and stuff, but I don't think Steve Ditko didn't. The other creators didn't. So, and probably Alan Moore was like, "Don't put my name on it." Like, I hate all of you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Like, just no. Just no.
Yeah. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So I do believe that as far as the movie goes, if you really enjoyed it, and you would probably like look up, say, trivia about it, or maybe just type the name in, and then, oh, what's this? Hellblazer, John Constantine, that comes up. So maybe that would have provided a way for people to, if they were interested in finding out, maybe like for me, if I'm like, oh, is there a sequel, or oh, where the ideas come from, I would just type it in and figure out from there, oh, hey, there's a comic book series called Hellblazer with a character named John Constantine. Maybe it's connected.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think possibly for anyone who didn't know that the movie was based off the comics, it was definitely a way to get them interested in it or to lead them on the path to figuring it out. And for those who already knew, I'm assuming the super fans of Hellblazer who existed, well before the movie came out, I hope that they at least, I know there was some anger about Keanu
I'm
Reeves
sure
being
that
cast, but
Chaz and Keanu were the
yeah, I hope that it was at least still faithful enough that they were like, okay, like even if we hate these parts of it, there are still parts of it that are cool. Like the graphics. Like I said, I recently watched it and I love the wings. I love the demony stuff. I think it holds up pretty decently considering how old it is.
right. Yeah, and it's that
for those
early
parts at least. And
2000s.
then yeah, like compared to some things which are newer and look way worse, I think it still graphically looks amazing, and especially like the practical effects that they still used were great, and
Right.
some of the stunt stuff was still pretty cool. So yeah, I still very much enjoy that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it worked for me. I mean, I was into comics before I saw that movie, and so I knew like, oh, DC, it's a DC Comics movie. I knew it was comics based. But then when I went to go read new stuff at the comic book store, I was like, oh, let me check out Hellblazer now because I like the character enough from what I saw in the movie. The hardest part is figuring out where to start, you know. But
Mm.
luckily, you can, like I always say, the first trade is pretty good start because you get to know John Constantine and Jamie Delano's version of him. And then usually I'll say like, okay, you can read issues 1 through 12, which is like the first two trades, and then jump to issue 41, which is trade 5. So like, just because like, not that the other stuff's bad, but like the other stuff doesn't like further the John Constantine story necessarily, and it's not as like accessible, you know, because you got to get through Fear Machine, you know.
Right.
I mean, you could just skip to Family Man if you don't want to get through Fear Machine, but which yeah, I would recommend that too to certain people. But it kind of, if you're not a comic book person, I usually just say straight to this run, straight to Dangerous Habits story arc, which is the cancer story arc, issues 41 to 46, and usually that catches people, especially if they've only seen the movie. They're like, oh, this is like, I kind of know what's going on because of the movie. So, yeah, I think this arc is a good like jumping on point for new people, especially if you've seen the movie. Obviously, it's kind of like a nice introduction to this. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's usually what I tell people to jump into. But one of the things that isn't covered in that movie is actually my favorite issue of this arc, which is issue 42, where John meets his friend Brendan, and we meet John's friend Brendan for the first time. And
Oh yeah, I love that issue.
yeah, I love it. One, it's great to see John with a friend, right? He doesn't have too many friends where he
Yeah.
actually likes them, or like they're not dead, you know? Like
Yeah.
And then like, so he meets Brendan.
Not haunting him.
Yeah, exactly. Not haunting him. And you know, so he meets Brendan, and like Brendan is a nice guy, but he's like obviously he's like an alcoholic. And then like throughout the night we find out that Brendan has cancer, and he invited John to come up here because he was like, maybe John can heal me. And John came because he was like, maybe Brendan has some magic that could heal me. So they're both fucked, and they both come to this realization at the same time. And that's like one of my favorite moments, when they both realize like, oh my God, we're both hoping to cure each other's cancer, you know, like, like
I thought that was a great contrast.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the best thing about it is like the stout, like his friend sold his soul to the devil to become like an alcohol connoisseur or whatever. And then like,
Yeah, like he has all the wine, and then he can also just make anything into any kind of alcohol that he wants, which, I mean, you know, of all the things that you could possibly sell your soul for, that's pretty boss. That is a
yeah.
boss choice to make, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely interesting. You know, certain people that would definitely be in their wheelhouse. Not me personally, but I don't know. Maybe if I had the best stout ever, it might change my mind, you know? Holy stout. I mean,
I might be tempted, maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on how much time I get to try them all. Like if it's like him and it's been a whole lifetime, that's not bad.
Right. I don't know
if you have a friend like John who can kind of like, you know, in a pinch kind of get you out of that bargain as well.
Right. Hopefully, but apparently, you know, they're both fucked, right? Because they both can't get out of cancer. But one thing I love about this is the first time John's able to save one of his friends. Like,
yeah,
all of his other friends die from him specifically doing something to fuck it up. But this time, Brennan fucks himself over, and John is able to save him. And I love this, like, issue 2 of this, John kind of breaks the curse that he's had with friends. Even though Brennan dies, he still gets to save his soul from the First of the Fallen and trick the First of the Fallen, which is a great a great trick.
Mm.
I don't know. I always thought that was like a clever thing, like because of course the devil's kind of gonna want to like rub it in and drink with you, and like he knows John, like he's heard of him in hell and all this stuff. So it's not like it's coming out of nowhere that he's like, I always wanted to drink with the devil. What do you say, buddy? And he's like, sure, why not? I'll see you soon anyway. And when they drink that, and then he puts the candles out, and then all of a sudden he's like, it's holy water, motherfucker. Like, I think that's like one of the funniest like John Constantine badass moments in the whole run.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But
I actually hadn't thought of it, the fact that he broke the curse with that. Because, I mean, yes, like you said, his friend still died, but he saved his soul, which is, all of his friends have died, and they've all, I'm assuming, lost their souls as well. But this was, like you said, the first time he's ever saved somebody.
I can't think of any other friends that have had their souls not taken by the devil. Like, there's literally scenes where, like, Nergal is ripping Richie's soul into hell. All that kind of stuff. It's, or not Nergal, it's was it the two demons? I can't remember, Vice and Virtue or whatever they're called. Pain and Pleasure, whatever they're called, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, like most of the time they are like literally ripped into hell by demons, and this was like him saving him. So
yeah, I hadn't made that connection actually. So thank you for mentioning that. There was a reason that I really liked this issue, and it was, even though it has that whole negative thing of them both being like, "Oh, I wanted you to cure me." It's like, wait, but I thought you were going to cure me, and then them just being like, "Doe,"
yeah,
like,
fuck us, right?
Drunk and like drown our sorrows, literally.
Yeah.
And then of course him passing semi-peacefully. I mean, passing drunk is probably got to be one of the more peaceful ways to go.
Yeah, you just die and your body
Besides,
fails while you're passed out.
Yeah. So like dying in your sleep essentially. And then immediately hearing that knock on the door, and he's be like, "Hey, so I'm here for his soul now," and him just being like, "Oh, you motherfucker."
Right. Yeah,
and then actually tricking him into drinking that was genius.
Yeah, I thought it seemed believable. So there's sometimes when like things are really convenient in a story arc just to make it work. But I feel like because John is John and hell knows who he is, like him, like I said, him like being like, let's drink. I always wanted to drink with the devil. That it's like, oh, okay, like this makes sense.
And the devil being cocky enough to be like, yeah, I'll drink with this mortal. Like, what's he gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. And then he fucking finds out what he's gonna do.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, through this arc and even the other 3 issues that follow, did you find any like points that you thought really stood out either in a good or bad way?
Well, I thought that the fact that he ends up dying from cancer as opposed to some sort of like crazy demonic or, just not normal thing, like that's how it starts out, is like, whoa, John, like you kind of forget he's human sometimes. You kind of forget he is just a person who happens to know some really good tricks and can do a bit of magic. But yeah, he can succumb to even the most, basic human diseases and things. And not just because it's not like magical cancer. It's literally like you've been smoking almost every day of your life since you were 12?
Yeah.
Or something. So like, yeah, how many packs do you smoke a day? It's like, oh, by the way, yeah, guess what? You're actually still human, and your body can succumb to something as normal as cancer because you just didn't even consider that.
Yeah.
Like that was both, I think, brilliant in its ability to be like, hey, yeah, by the way, he's dying of cancer, like not some crazy voodoo cancer or like mystical cancer. It's like, no, it's just he smoked a lot and now he has cancer. So I thought it was a great way to inject like realism into the story of, yes, John is human. And even though he does all this crazy stuff, he can still succumb to something. Anybody can, right. Especially when like he met Matt, and that I loved their relationship. I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah, Matt. That character of Matt is like one of my favorite. I don't know if you could tell when I did this voice, but like just that old man who's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say what I want, Sonny. Like I'm dying. Who gives a fuck? Like yeah. he
Yeah,
just
he was really cool.
yeah he just made me laugh multiple times. Just this whole arc while reading it. I was so sad like when he died, the way he died.
Oh man, that really like ripped my heart out, and you could totally see how it affected John as well.
Right.
Just that. Oh, funny thing, when I was listening to that particular scene when he right after Matt dies and he goes out and he's just in the rain and he's just like, oh my gosh, it's been raining like crazy here, so it was providing some really great ambiance to that of just John in so much anguish in the rain, and it was raining here too, so I was just like, oh, why?
Why,
It's
Matt?
so sad.
Why?
I thought that was a really great timing of weather to enhance the
Yeah.
the issue.
Now, did you get any like hint that Matt's death might have been a little supernatural as well? Meaning that like the first of the fallen or some kind of evil force did that on purpose to get back at John?
I didn't think of that really. I thought it was personally, I thought he was going to be dead already.
Right.
The fear that John had that he was already dead. I thought it was just going to be like that. He's going to come in and there's going to be an empty bed or something. So I don't know. I mean, it would be insanely cruel, obviously, and that would be, I wouldn't put it past him
Right.
to not only make his death so horrible, but to give them that time of him being like, oh, he's okay for now. Like, it's all right. We have this little moment. And then just like, bam, horrible, horrible, painful death. So it totally could be. And I would think that that is both amazing and horrible if that is supposed to be, what's
I don't
implied.
know if it is.
But
I was just thinking it could have been. Like he doesn't say it at all. But like the way that Matt
mhm.
dies, like you just see like blood and shit and like everything like exploding out of his body at once. And I was like, I wonder if that is like the first being like, fuck you. I can take him, I can like torture him at the end. But they don't say it. So I was just wondering if you got that at all from it or not.
I didn't. I just thought it was one of those things where John has, he has that moment where he's like, I made it, I'm through it. And he completely forgets about everyone else because he is still a selfish bastard. So, of course, as soon as he makes it, he's like, oh, yeah, I'm the best. And it's only by running into like a friend of a friend that all of a sudden he's like, oh, wait, I didn't, or well, a friend of a friend like Kit. And then of course, Chaz being like, what the hell, you're alive. And then he'll be like, oh, right, I should probably tell other people. And then,
Yes.
oh, wait, my new best friend, Matt, I completely forgot about him. So to me, it just seemed like a totally normal thing for him anyway, to just kind of completely forget about the world, focus on himself for a few days,
Yeah.
and then have to be like literally shocked back into, oh, right, other people exist. And you were worried about somebody, weren't you?
Yeah, that's true. Like, and one thing that does get introduced in this story arc specifically is all like a bunch of new cast members. Like before in Jamie Delato's run, it was all Marge and those people, and in this one we
Hmm.
get Kit, we get Ellie the demon, we get
Right.
the snob, who all come into play later on in this arc or in this run. I mean, and
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah, so like what did you think of them? Like as a cast of characters, did you like all of them? Did you think any of them were weird or not fitting? Or
I liked the contrast between Ellie being a demon and seemingly a nice person, I
right,
mean, like she seemed like she wasn't overly hostile anyway. And then you have the snob or Gabriel, who's basically an ass and he's supposed to be an angel. And I loved that contrast of characters who are more than just what they are. Like
right,
a demon could also be a decent person and an angel can be an asshole. So
right. It's
I
all about
love
what they're trying
that
to get
there's
at that moment.
more. yeah, it's more than just like their archetypes. They feel more real, like more personable.
Hmm. Yeah, I really like all the like introduction of the new characters. Um, Even like little traits of John that are different. One of the things he does, like when he meets the snob, is he goes into the club, the Caligula Club or whatever it's called, and or the Cambridge Club, that's what it's called, and he like uses magic to get in, and he even says like, I'm not supposed to do that, but fuck it. Because like in the Jamie Delano run, he's like he never uses magic except like in dire circumstances. Like even in the Family Man arc, he never uses magic in that. It's like a gun. Like like he doesn't take
Yeah.
out a serial killer, it's and even when he does use magic, it seems like he kind of stumbles into it, or like he's not prepared, or like he just has to throw it together and hopefully it works. Whereas in this, he's using magic probably because he knows he's dying, so fuck it, whatever. But like we see he's a lot more confident in the use of magic in this run at the beginning. Um, and that's kind of different. Did you notice that at all, or did it register?
I I just assumed it was both he's dying and like you said, he's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna just do what I need to do to get to where I need to get to and hopefully find my cures. But also his newfound, I mean, you assume the newfound confidence from merging with his twin. So
Yeah.
I thought it didn't stand out to me as far as like, oh, this feels kind of out of place. It seemed to me like it fit with the character changes that crossed over from the previous run. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I would say I didn't notice it like as it being like, oh, well, that's weird. It just to me seemed to fit his character, at least
Right.
the way he was going along. So,
Okay. Well, and along with that, like you see these little things, but then he comes up with a big plan to trick the three kings of hell into all like buying his soul, and then like knows that that will cause a war in hell when they all come to claim him, and then that will cause the apocalypse basically, where heaven and hell will fight, and they know heaven will win. So the demons can't take his soul because then God will win. Like, what do you think of that? And like, did you think that was a good solution to his problems? And then also, was it believable?
I thought that that was probably one of the craziest, most convoluted plans that he's come up with so far. Like, both because I think he wasn't really thinking of the, well, maybe he was, but to me it seemed he was thinking more of like the immediate, which is like, they have to save me, they can't let me die, so they have to cure my cancer. I was thinking he was thinking of that most immediate, you know, instant help that he needed. If he was also thinking grand scheme about the whole, hell fights, they get weak, heaven takes over, and heaven wins everything. I I think you did say he mentioned that he was also thinking of that part, right? In the issue?
Well, I mean, he's got
Like
to
kind of
have
in
meant
the back of his head.
he had to have known that. Like that's how the stalemate would have happened. And if he didn't, if he just thought the first part, then he was putting a lot at risk, right? He's putting all of humanity at risk on them curing his cancer and not like coming to an agreement over his soul. You know?
Yeah. I mean it just it's both epic and also the craziest possible thing
Irresponsible
that
is
he
another
could have
word.
come
Yeah.
up with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Of just putting all of existence essentially on the line because he didn't want to die of cancer. Well, not only not wanting to die of cancer, but because he screwed over the fallen by saving Brendan. I think right there he knew, oh shit, like I pretty much assumed I was most likely going to hell, but now I know for sure. Like he
Yeah.
is waiting for me specifically. So that I think was his first sort of like, okay, I need to figure out a way to get out of this for sure.
Yeah.
And then that is what led to his whole, well, what's the only thing that could possibly stop him? The other two, I guess.
Yeah.
And then going,
I always felt like like he did think, from the time when he realized, oh shit, like that guy's gonna be after me. Like that's when he
uh-huh.
started coming up with the plan in the background. Like that's not mentioned, but like, he's always scheming and trying to figure out shit. And then once he comes up with that plan, he does realize like this God has to get involved, and that would mean like the end of civilization if this doesn't work. But but he believes it will work because I think he knows the rules, right? Like that's one thing I love about kind of religious like Constantine stuff, is because it's all based on rules that like people made up, but like for some reason demons and God have to like abide by them. So like contracts, it's a very human concept, but like for some reason a demon can't just be like, no. like I'm not going. So he's really hedging his bets that, the kings of hell actually have to live up to the contracts as well. As opposed to just like some random demon. I get it. Like if it was like a younger demon, or like a lesser demon that maybe they can't break the contracts because they don't have the power, but you're assuming those rules still stick to the heads of these powers, right? So it was a lot to bet, even if he kind of knew they stick to rules. At least I think so.
That's true.
Yeah.
It did sort of seem like in those last moments when he's literally bleeding out and they're all fighting, he's just like, this has to work. You know? Like if any one of them is like, hey, you know what? You take him. And then, then it would all be over.
Yeah, pretty much. You had to hope that they would all argue and then realize that, oh, if we fight, which we're going to because we have to by contract or whatever, then God will win, and we don't want that. So none of us can claim his soul. And one thing I did love is that, and they did this a little bit more hardcore than in the movie. In the movie, when Lucifer is bested, he's like, you son of a bitch. And he's like, I'm not going to let you die and go to heaven. And he pulls the cancer out of his lungs. It looks like it hurts, obviously, because he's like rummaging around in his lung tissue. But in this, they like build a cage and like totally explode his body and then rebuild a new John, like basically from the ooze or whatever that was left over, and then like he doesn't have cancer. What'd you think of that by comparison?
Yeah, that was definitely more graphic for sure.
Yeah.
I think that they probably couldn't go to that extent in the movie, so the pulling the cancer out part was probably like, yeah, we can manage that. The rest of it, we'll leave that for the comic book.
Right. I mean, it
That's
makes sense.
Too much.
In the comic, you can get away with a lot that you can't get away with on screen, simply because of ratings and stuff. But also, like something about drawing it. Like a drawing is not as bad as seeing even like movie magic versions of violence, right? So
yeah, it's a bit more visceral when it's like a moving visual medium, right. I think.
Yeah, for sure. And even though it was rated R, it might have been a little bit over the top for that movie.
A little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, so following the him getting saved by the three kings of hell and beating cancer, we have a 2-issue arc that's about like a woman who owns a bar that gets burned down. It's kind of out of nowhere, right? Like it's just in the life of John. He's known this barkeep. It's a pub he goes to every now and then. And just in the background, there's some evil guys plotting to take away the bar and burn it down for insurance money and then building condos on top of it. What'd you think of this 2-arc storyline?
I thought it was a nice come down from the intensity of the arc where all of creation could have been at war, essentially.
Right.
So to go from that extreme and now John's cured and he's in a better place, and except he's really drunk, but because he then realizes the enormity of what he's just done, so then he goes and gets drunk and then gets more drunk. I thought it was a nice sort of come down story, because you figure he's probably not ready to deal with much more craziness, like insane craziness. So this was, to me, it seemed kind of like a way to sort of still keep him in, because I think even he was saying like, I think every time I think of like settling down and just moving beyond this, something happens that draws me back in again. And this was
pull me back in again.
Yeah. This was that something to pull him back into the world of horrible, crazy, mystical things.
Yeah, and it's also like a nice reprieve, because he can't be fighting the King of Hell every issue, right? So like this is just a little ghost story about, a mom and pop pub owner who get killed, and they love each other so much that they stick around and they are able to get revenge. And then all John has to do is be like, come on, love. You don't want to kill anybody, do you? Like he just talks to him. There's no like magic about it or anything. It's just because he can see the supernatural, like he's an empath or whatever, right? So he knows what's going on. But then we also get like those super fucked up kills from the ghosts.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
pretty intense. Like, so even though it's sort of like a downtread in that, it's a ghost story, it's like, no, it's actually still a very brutal
yes,
ghost story.
the ending kill
I mean,
scene.
even her dying. Oh my gosh! But even when she died, like that was messed up. I mean,
Oh
that dude
yeah,
just like wailed her, and then yeah, getting blown up and everything. So that was brutal to start with. But then yeah, when they what do you call it, possess those guys and then just start both murdering people and also having them murder themselves.
yeah. Feeding them their own intestines is pretty
Oh
gnarly.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Once again, something you can do in a comic book, but can't do on the
Yeah.
screen unless you're watching Saw or something like that. Hostel. but yeah, I liked this story arc. It's a nice quick one. It's a nice breezy little quick arc. But what it really does is introduces Kit. I mean, Kit is introduced, I think, at the end of Dangerous Habits, right? But then,
yeah.
like he just runs into her. But then this arc kind of gives him time to like meet her again at the pub and drink, and then that's the same pub where the one that gets exploded with the woman pub owner in it. So like that's all kind of his romantic stuff between Kit and him is in the background of this ghost story about love, right? So it kind of fits the theme. And
Yeah.
I love Kit because she's so like outspoken and like brash and like
sure of herself.
Yes.
She can handle things. I like that about her too. Like she grabbed that guy by the balls and was like, "Hey, you can do what we say."
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm assuming drags him down the stairs to the cab by the balls.
Yeah, by the balls. Exactly.
That is such a great visual.
That, or even like fending John off. Like, John is hitting on her pretty hard when he's drunk, and she's like, "Hey, not tonight. You're all drunk and shit." Like, so like,
I did love that line where he's just like, "I'm not sexist, but I'll be damned if I get like drunk under the table by a woman," and then he literally like passes out.
Yeah, she drinks him under the table.
I
Also,
thought that was
I mean,
funny.
she's an Irish woman, so that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
But,
I have a lot of kudos for her for being able to hold her liquor against John. Like that right there is a feat.
Yeah. So like, what do you think about her compared to Marge, his past lover in the Jamie Delano run? Or even, I'll even say,
Marge,
or Zed,
Oh, that's true. Yeah, kind of forgot about that. Well, I definitely, I think of the three of them, she is the strongest because Marge had sort of like I know with her and Mercury, she almost seemed like she was the daughter sometimes.
Yeah.
Sorry, sister. Well, yeah, but she kind of seemed like Mercury was almost taking care of her sometimes. So she was a bit of a pushover, and it probably not the best person for John since he would be able to just run all over her essentially.
Right.
And Zed, even though she had some strength to her, she still had sort of that trauma of everything she went through. And again, John seems to sort of just feed off of that and is able to just manipulate that. So theirs was also kind of a toxic relationship. But Kit, who can hold her own, like both physically and mentally, probably even spiritually. I don't know. Maybe she's got some stuff there too. We'll find out. But I think her being sort of almost like she's John's equal in at least a physical sense of being able to take care of herself, being able to be like, hey, you know what? Keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah, she don't take shit.
There yet.
Yeah,
exactly. I think that she is probably the best person that could match him without him. Well, hopefully without him, sort of running all over her.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously this is the budding of it, but we do see their first like get together, like where they have sex in the holiday episode or the holiday issue.
I like that issue too.
Yeah. That's another one where John's just walking and happens to notice like this spirit and is like, what's going on, pal? And then he gets this whole, backstory about this depressed Lord of the Dance / Christmas, deity. And
like
then,
pre-Christmas deity.
right, the pagan Christmas, the winter solstice deity, I guess we'd call it. And then, we get to learn all about it and everything. Like what happened back in the Viking days, because he is a Viking god or like a Norse god of dance or something, right? So, or happiness, and so yeah, like I
merriment.
Yes, exactly, and I like that one just because it is like a nice like one shot breather, and then also it furthers the relationship between Kit and John because you see him at the end of that be like, fuck, I forgot a present for Kit. And then he comes home and she's like, hey, and he's like, I'm sorry, I forgot the present. And she's like, oh, were we supposed to get each other presents? I didn't know. And then like, because I didn't get you anything either. And it's like, oh, okay. Like that's what I'm talking about with like, she seems to be like on his level. Like she probably thought of it, but since he didn't mention it, she was like, I guess we're not getting each other presents. Like, it seems like she's on top of the way John is,
Yeah, they seem to be a good match for each other. But not only that, but she also holds him accountable where she's just like, hey, if you ever do this again and like leave me on Christmas Eve, like I'll kill you.
Yeah.
Or, just both, holding him accountable and also saying, hey, you know what? We weren't exactly at the gift stage yet, but at the same time, you're a dick for leaving me alone this whole time.
Yes. But also let's make love. So
yeah, exactly.
Let's open our presents.
You can make it
together.
Up to me.
Yeah. But yeah, so I really like that issue. I think it's fun. I had to sing, which was always fun, I guess, for people. Hopefully.
I thought it was nice. You did a good job because I had never heard that song before. So
I hadn't either.
I thought, cool, that's a nice tune.
Yeah, I think it's a fairly popular song outside of America. I've never heard of it, but there's lots of renditions on YouTube of it, so it seems fairly a stable of Christmas music for Europeans, maybe. And so yeah, like, and I liked the God saying like they changed the words to the songs, which makes sense that they would do that, and how it doesn't make any sense, like the how they're talking about like dancing and stuff, and then all of a sudden they're talking about like some guy on the cross and it's torture, and then back to dancing. It's like, what? Like it doesn't make sense if you change the words. So yeah, I
totally get him.
Yeah, I liked that issue a lot. I thought he was a fun character. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much all 9 episodes. Did you mind like the little breath of issues in between, like, or after the arc? I'm assuming I know there's going to be another arc directly after this. Or I think there's 2 more issues of filler that we're going to cover in the next Hell Talk, and then another arc. So like Garth Ennis likes to do this kind of peppering in of one shots or like 2 issue story arcs in between big or 6 issue story arcs. How do you like that feel as opposed to Jamie Delano's run, which tended to be directly, unless he had a fill-in from like Neil Gaiman or whatever, like just straight into the next issue, straight into the next run?
I really liked it. I mean, like I said, this was probably the first time I would have actually loved a little bit more in the arc, just maybe one extra episode before he meets up with Brendan, of him trying and failing to find another way to cure his cancer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, it's perfect. It's, it's complete. It's tight. It flows really well. And then just goes right into these sort of like little episodes, little issues. Like you said, I thought it was a great flow. It seemed to go by so quickly, and not just because it comes out like every week. Like there have been times when things have not gone so smoothly, quickly. Right. So we won't talk about that anymore.
Fear Machine.
But yeah, it's already been mentioned too many times this time. But yeah, I really liked the flow. I thought that it was a great, like, crazy ending for the arc. and then this sort of like nice, oh, it's a little ghost story with intense gore, and then oh, here's an actual like nice Christmas story with none of that, and it just has this feeling of sort of an ending, but also still leaving it open,
Right.
because like you said, there's a couple more one shots and then another arc, but it never feels like it's just waiting for the next thing to happen. It feels like these are actually moments that are just in continuous line,
Right. Or that
even
it's
if
like
they aren't part
filler.
of a bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't feel like filler. It felt like they were actually like additional little snippets of stories that are just a day in the life of John. And I
Right.
really enjoyed that.
And I think he does a good job. He does that on purpose. Like he can have these little side stories, and then he'll add like the little relationship stuff with John and Kit, and then it's like, oh, okay, so this builds something, for the story arcs later, So it's not just leaving us hanging one-off issues that don't mean anything, and then back to the story. It's like, no, like the story's going. It's just this little supernatural things happening as well. So I
Yeah,
like,
it still
I
feels
enjoy it.
woven into like the, what do you call, like maybe the larger arc, not just the individual arc,
Right.
but
The
the
whole
longer
run,
story
the
he's
big
trying to tell.
run.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. The arc and then the runs.
Right. Yes, exactly. Um, so yeah, was there anything that I missed that you wanted to talk about specifically?
Oh, well, I was actually wondering, since we've moved on to a whole new writer and a whole new run, was there any character besides John in the Delano run that you really enjoy, like your second favorite character
In the
from
Delano
his
run?
run? Like anyone, yeah, like anyone that was just in that one, or I mean, I'm assuming you know more, so maybe someone who continues past his run, but do you have a second favorite character? I guess is what I'm trying to
Hmm.
get at.
In the whole, yeah. So I like not Mar. I like Mercury a lot. I think she's a fun character. Um, from the Delano run, no. I really love Matt in this run, but he dies like in the first four
Yeah.
issues. So, um, like, but Matt to me was like the most fun character. Like he's all piss and vinegar, but he's all old and shit, so that's fun. Um, I also like the building of Chaz as a character, because like Chaz was in the Jamie Delano run, but he didn't have too much to do other than drive John around. But like there wasn't much focus on him. But I do know that in this run, there's a lot more Chaz in the Garth Ennis run, and like the relationship between John and him gets explained a lot more and a lot more fleshed out. So to me,
Ooh, that's
that's
going to be exciting.
yeah, to me that's good. I enjoy that. I don't know how much other writers do after that. I'm trying to remember, because he's not always in it. He's because he's in England, and sometimes John is in America for some of the later runs. I'm trying to remember if Chaz picks is like a big part of the later stuff, but for sure in the Ennis run, there's a lot more Chaz. So I like Chaz in this run. Like just the going back and forth with him and John is fun. I love how John basically he's like the worst son of a bitch friend, but also the best son of a bitch friend. Like somehow he like pisses Chaz off and like makes Chaz want to be like fuck you, but then at the same time is like no, I'm sorry, you're my friend. Like he does when he
Yeah.
leaves the letter when like John pisses
Oh
him
man,
off.
that letter.
Yeah, and then he leaves the letter. It's like I'm dying. I didn't want to tell you in person. I love you. Here's like the money I owe you. I'm sorry. And Chaz is like, well, now I feel like a fucking twat. Like, so
And he probably meant to do it that way too.
yes,
He knew they were going to get into a fight, and then he just leaves it so he can still somehow be on top.
exactly.
Like, I'm the better person somehow.
Exactly. That's how I always figure it is. Like John is always like knows what Chaz is gonna do, and he likes Chaz, but he does take advantage of him, and it's just funny the way he treats him. He treats him a lot like Swamp Thing, where like he like John knows how to push his buttons, but like to get him
That's
to do what
true.
he wants. So yeah. So did you have any other questions?
Oh, well, actually, yeah, I was wondering if you had a favorite cover from this little arc that we went through.
So I have two. My two favorites are
Hmm.
the pub where I died, the two pub stories um after the
The
Dangerous
first issue or
Habits.
the second issue?
I like both of them. I think together they're
Oh,
good
cool.
because they're both like they have ghostly figures and they're like the way that they're staggered with John in the front of it. It just looks cool. I think both are good covers and would make me want to read them. So
That's neat.
yeah,
I actually really liked the Christmas issue cover. I thought that it was both like Christmassy, but at the same time just off enough, like with the little bits of not, I don't know, toys or figures that were like aligning the size, plus
Yeah.
of course the person in the middle with the horns. I thought it was a great like juxtaposition of it being both Christmassy, but obviously not normal.
It's like
Christmas.
Nightmare
Like
Before
you
Christmas.
knew, yeah, you knew looking at it, it was going to be most likely Christmas themed, but there was going to be a twist somewhere in there. And I kind of liked its ominous feeling that was both creepy, but also still somehow looks like joyous and festive. So
Right.
yeah, I think that one was my favorite.
Cool. Well, if there's nothing left, we'll be doing issues 50 through whatever the next arc is. I think probably we'll do this in like 10 issue chunks, just because of the way that the arcs fall. So probably by the end of the 50s, we'll be doing another one of these. But yeah.
Oh, nice! I look forward to it.
Yeah. So with that, I guess we'll see you guys on the next one.
See you later.
Bye.